It's a little quick knife discussion again. They seem to be pretty popular out here on YouTube. So what you have here is the Kershaw Skyline, specifically model number 1760, made in USA, manufactured in January '09. Probably an EDC knife, borderline, almost tactical knife. It's not expensive at all. This is a Walmart purchase. I guess the reason why this one interests me is that look how big that blade is. Dang, it's a whole lot of blade for a cheap knife like this, or inexpensive. Every Kershaw knife I bought has just an amazingly sharp point to it. The whole blade is actually really sharp. I mean, when I talk about one of my top 3 to 5 factors, what I like about knives is out of the box sharpness, and I've never been disappointed with Kershaw. Sometimes they're not often shaving sharp, but they're real close, and they're much more consistent than Benchmade. I would say sharpness factors, depending on the model you buy, Spyderco is probably the sharpest, and then Kershaw, and then Benchmade. Again, it all depends on maybe who's doing the sharpening in a particular knife, but that seems to be my track record of things. This one, I'll probably do a more detailed, better camera review of it. There's already some reviews out there of this knife, but it's G10 handles. It's G10 on both sides. It's a liner lock. The liner lock's a little small. The blade is, I don't know what steel it is. It's not I don't even think they stamped the steel on this one. It's like some kind of Swedish steel, I believe. I could be wrong on that one, but it's not high-end steel, but the knife is good quality. Pocket clip. My gripe with Kershaw is the pocket clips are always too tight. Again, this is just me, and I know if you're in a more you don't want to drop your knife, of course, right? But this is just too tight for me. I don't want to hassle to put it back on, right? It takes a lot of work to put the knife back on your jeans with this. It's a little too tight for me. It's not an assisted opening knife. It's the flipper. So this is what it looks like closed. If you buy this, don't expect it to deploy all the way against gravity. So I'll put a decent amount of force with my index finger here, and the knife's going upwards. Okay, so it is new, right? But I did play with the pivot screw a little bit, and even if I loosened it up, it just wouldn't do it. So the blade's heavy enough to where you're not going to get it to deploy and lock in place all the way. Okay, let's try it with no flicking with reverse gravity, right? Or gravity helping. Okay, so it deployed almost all the way, but if you look, not quite clicked in. So you really need to use some wrist action to get it deployed. That's pretty easy to do. It does have dual thumb studs on this, but the reality is they're way too small to be even used. This is probably the worst knife for thumb studs. They don't work at all. I'll give you an example. They're just too small to put your thumb in there at all. And typically I do like a 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock push up. That actually kind of worked, but it's not easy to do. You just can't get on the thumb stud very well. I think they're kind of embedded into the handle a little bit. They're just hard to access. You can see this one's real close to the G10 as well. No way you're going to do this with gloves. So I got it working a little bit better there. So if you buy it, I wouldn't say totally rely upon their use to try to do it up. Yeah, so I think the best thing for this thumb studs is if you use the flipper and you just use your thumb to finish it off if the flipper doesn't go all the way. So something to think about there. I don't care too much. What else? It's extremely lightweight. So the biggest advantage for this knife, long blade, sharp, and extremely lightweight. It's well balanced. I don't know what you call this, but the indentation within the handle, all my knives that have this I just love. I love that style. It's a good ergonomically way to hold the knife. It does feel a little fragile, just based because there's really no liner in here. It's lightweight because there isn't any liner. You have the liner lock, okay, but that's just on that one side. You have it back here, you have the closed design at the bottom, but this is just, so looking at this top part, this is just all G10, no liner. It is more dense G10 than I have on that nitrous striker, which I'm probably overly careful with, but it's definitely light because of that only G10 approach. I would say if you're doing a knife that doesn't have any liners in it, I like the 10, but I'm thinking maybe the like the SOG Zytel or maybe the FRN from Spyderco's, maybe a hair better. You lose the texturing, which I wouldn't say is great on this knife anyways, but it seems like you might pick up some durability on those other materials. What else here? I love the blade shape. That point, the long blade you have, it's just a little over 3 inches. What else? So it's well balanced. Okay, that's good. I would say the handle is maybe a little bit longer than I would normally carry for an EDC, but you have to have something to store that blade in, and because it's so light, I think it's usable. I think it's a unique feature to have the handle kind of curved around like that. It's kind of nice. It's unique. I don't know if I'm completely sold on it. I would say that's about it for now. Let me play around with it some more. The pocket clip does seem a little weird, kind of dull. I think that is about it. Solid lockup. So let me just to recap. Positives, razor sharp. The point is nice. The large blade, the weight. Negatives. You know, I talk about the perception of knives versus the reality, right? But because of the lightweight and the no liner at all, there's that perception of low quality. I don't think it is. I think it's actually a very well made, high quality knife. Let me play with it for a little bit, but I don't think it's low quality at all. The flipper, you know, there could use a little bit more of a maybe, I don't know, maybe a little spring in there or something, but I guess it would make it a lot more expensive. But so the flipper needs a little more work. You have to flick it a little bit more, but I don't think that's really the purpose of this knife. And then the thumb studs, I'm not crazy about those. No jimping on the back here, and I think that's okay. You have this gigantic hole cut into the handle where you're not going to slip if you're doing some kind of a stabbing move at all. So I think that's that. Let me play around with it some more, but I think it's a good buy. Pretty cheap knife.